So coming up now, Charlie Hurt here in studio with me, Washington Times opinion editor and author of the new book, Still Winning, Why America Went All In on Donald Trump and Why It Must Do It Again. That's Charlie's opinion, and that is the title of that book. Ari Fleischer, former White House press secretary. Both are Fox News contributors. Austin Goolsbee, President Obama's former chief economist and professor at the University of Chicago, who's been reading Charlie's book back to front. Right, Austin? And is and is convinced. Great to see all of you tonight. You know, first of all, Austin, let me go to you with the sort of introduction that we put together tonight about these questions about the support for Joe Biden in the Democratic Party and the fact that he seems to be putting so many of his eggs in the Obamacare basket, given what's going on in the courts.
Yeah, look, I thought your opening was fair to the vice president, and the fact is he didn't have a great first debate. The nomination and the White House are not jobs that are owed anybody. You have to earn it for either party, either nomination. If Joe Biden uses this challenge as an opportunity and goes out and earns the nomination, in a way, this would be the best thing that could happen to him. If he doesn't, if he continues to be undisciplined and stumbles, he's not going to be the nominee. And I think that's just a reality. What
does your gut tell you right now, Austin, about where this goes for him?
I worked closely with the vice president. I'm a big admirer of his, and I think you would count him out a bit at your peril. Okay. I think he could turn it around, and I have been a bit surprised that he wasn't more talking. Why was he talking about what he did in the Senate in the 1970s? He should be talking about, I was friends with President Barack Obama, who's very popular to the Democratic electorate. Yeah. And if the court throws out Obamacare, in a way, that's going to be the Trump campaign's biggest nightmare, because they're going to get some people really agitated, and that's an issue that's going to play to Biden's favor.
All right. Ari, I wanted you to take a look at some of these sort of underlying numbers, which 538 did a very interesting job putting together some of this. Take a look at this, which deals with, recognition, candidate recognition, and how well or unknown they are, right? So we know that Joe Biden got a very nice pop because he was probably the only name that people knew in the early going here. He's at that 30% line in terms of recognition there. Now, think about the fact that Hillary Clinton was at 60% in the same measure, according to 538. And Ari, she lost, as we all well know.
Well, that's the real question, is Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton 2020. And I think all evidence is going to point that's going to be the case for him. He just feels like yesterday's senator, and that's his problem. This is why he talked about the segregationists that he knew in the 70s, because it was comfortable, it was natural, it was Joe. And he's missing what 2020 feels like, especially for grassroots Democrats. Now, I do think there's another side of all of this, and that is there's a tremendous tension inside the Democrat Party to get as far left as they can, but still defeat Donald Trump. You've got the pragmatists who just want to defeat Trump. They really don't care who it is as long as it's not Trump. But you've got the people who are ideological, who really want to use this moment to get to the left. And we're going to see that tension play out.
Yeah. And we've seen Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, as we showed in the beginning, are rising in terms of people's perspective on their electability. Charlie, when you look at this, electability is a very tricky thing. So Joe Biden might be more electable than any of those other folks. And President Trump has said, give me Elizabeth Warren. I'd love to run against her. He's a little more complimentary about Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of 2004 when you had President Bush running for re-election, and there was a lot of people on the left who really didn't like him, and they would do anything to topple him. And of course, they ran off with Howard Dean for a long time, and then at the last minute, they were reminded that electability was the only thing they cared about, and so they jumped into the arms of John Kerry, which of course didn't work out very well for him. But people forget. Joe Biden has been part of the problem in Washington for nearly 50 years. And the entire time he's been in Washington, he's been trying to figure out how to become president. And he's run a couple of times, and it's been disastrous. And the closest he's ever gotten to the White House is when Barack Obama needed somebody that fit his description. And so, it's a good reminder that he really is kind of bad at this.
Yeah, well, he's never made it past Iowa, but he's also been vice president for 8 years. But Austin, it raises the question that we talked about in the intro here. Why are so many of the close Obama associates so unwilling to be pro-Joe Biden?
Well, I think you got a lot of things going on. There were a lot of people who worked in the Obama administration. Many of those people have actively chosen a candidate now, they either from who their home state was or people that they're working for. So that explains part of it. And I think this tension that's going to play out between different wings of the party and between the older wing and the younger wing, that's a natural process to happen in a primary. This is the most on steroids mega version where we got 26 candidates now on the Democratic side. So I don't think that just the fact that there are a bunch of Obama staffers who have chosen somebody else besides Joe Biden necessarily means he's going to have trouble. But it doesn't mean he's home free by any means.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, he's got to go out and earn it and show that he's on his game.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you shaking your head? Why?
Because I think it is serious. I think these are people who know Joe Biden. They worked with him at the White House. They've seen him. I suspect they had to carry a bucket and a pail and a broom and clean up after him a few times. And so they know the character of the man. You know, I was just thinking in the Bush White House, if we were put in the same position, there was somebody we knew, a vice president who was running, and we didn't support him, that would be telling.
You guys wouldn't have all rallied around Dick Cheney for president?
Well, he never said he was going to run. But if there was a younger person who said he was going to run, the White House staff under Bush was throwing their support to a senator here or a congressman there, it wouldn't feel right.
Yeah.
There's a sign of trouble for the vice president.
So, Charlie, also tonight, you know, he calls himself middle-class Joe. He released his tax returns today. He's made $2.8 million in speaking fees and other engagements. You know, more power to him. He has every right to do that as a private citizen. But, you know, is that going to pose a problem for him in the next debate potentially?
Oh, I think absolutely. And I think that there is this huge disconnect between him and the rest of the candidates running. And in a lot of ways, it's a little bit alarming for America because you have a Democratic Party that has just sort of lurched so far to the left that it's not even recognizable by, I think, a lot of regular Democratic voters who are their base outside of Washington. And that's bad for Democrats because I don't think that they can win the White House that way. But it's also bad for America because, you know, we do need a viable, good, smart opposition party to keep, you know, both parties honest.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great to see all of you tonight. Good to have you here.
President Trump says Republicans will wait until after the 2020 election to mount another effort to get rid of Obamacare and replace it with a better system, in his words. But Democrats in Congress are trying to take advantage of the president's position right now. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel shows us how tonight.
This is not an issues fight or a legislative fight. It's a values fight.
Democrats defending Obamacare with it threatened by the Trump administration at the Supreme Court.
They have no health care plan. It's the same old song they've been singing. They're for repeal. They have no replace.
President Trump punted health care until after next year's election.
I want to put it after the election because we don't have the House. So even though the health care is good, really good, it's much better than when the plan comes out, which we'll be showing you at the appropriate time. It's much better than Obamacare.
Majority Leader McConnell told reporters he and the president are back on the same page.
So I made it clear to him we were not going to be doing that in the Senate. He did say, as he later tweeted, he accepted that.
New York Democrat Congressman Hakeem Jeffries calls waiting until after the election shady.
I'm from Brooklyn. I know a hustle when we see one. Donald Trump is hustling the American people straight out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
But the White House press secretary says it's about getting what the president and the American people want.
Protect pre-existing conditions, that we lower the cost. We have to allow patients to have a say in the care that they receive. It is a complete and total contrast to what you're seeing the Democrats put forward right now.
Some Democrats are proposing Medicare for all, which critics say would cost trillions of dollars and reduce the quality of care. Republicans Rick Scott of Florida and Josh Hawley of Missouri have unveiled a prescription drug plan ensuring pharmaceutical companies cannot charge Americans more than other consumers around the world. One of the president's top allies says Republicans must figure it out.
If the court rules in Trump's favor, we need to be thinking about an alternative that we can lay out to the public as our direction versus theirs.
Louisiana Republican John Kennedy called out some lawmakers for lacking courage.
Some of my colleagues need to go online, check Amazon, see if they're selling spines at a special discount this week.
With Democrats already crisscrossing the country to run for president, a health care deal would seem unlikely before the 2020 election. The president has released some of the pressure for now. Brett?
Mike Emanuel, live on the Hill. Mike, thanks.